It's a clear evening at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, and on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9 as it prepares for its 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. My name is Shiva, and I'm a Falcon Integration and Test Engineer here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and welcome to our launch coverage of the JCSAT-18 Kacific1 mission. Now today we're launching a single high-throughput communications satellite with two payloads aboard, or two sets of communication equipment. One of the payloads is for SkyPerfect JSAT, and the other for Kacific. We'll hear a little bit more about that later on in today's coverage. Now at this point, we're just under T-minus 12 minutes and counting with all systems currently go, so let's take a closer look at Falcon 9 on the pad. Starting from the base of the rocket and working our way up, we have the first stage, atop that the second stage, and finally at the very top are our payload fairings, which encapsulate the satellite. Now the first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle, and it accelerates the rocket from the launch pad to the edge of the Earth's atmosphere using its 9 Merlin engines. Today's first stage is a little bit sooty, and that's because it previously flew 2 Dragon resupply missions earlier this year, CRS-17 and CRS-18. Today makes its third flight. We'll be attempting to recover this first stage on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed about 350 nautical miles off the east coast of Florida. Now, above the black composite inner stage sits our second stage, and its job is to carry the satellite into orbit. The second stage will separate from the first stage about 2.5 minutes into flight, and then it'll ignite its Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. For today's mission, MVAC will ignite twice to carry the JCSAT-18 Kacific1 satellite to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. The first ignition should happen shortly after stage separation, and the second about 27.5 minutes into flight. Finally, the very top of the rocket is our nose cone structure called the payload fairing. It's 17 feet in diameter, and it protects the satellite from the atmospheric forces, heating, and contamination that occur during liftoff and ascent. Once we're at the edge of space, we'll jettison the fairing halves back to the Earth about 3.5 minutes into the flight. Now we are attempting to recover both the fairing halves today on our recovery vessels, Miss Tree and Miss Chief. Our hope is to catch one of the halves in Miss Tree's net and the other in Miss Chief's. We will not have live coverage of the fairing recovery attempt, but please stay tuned to our social media for updates as we receive them. So with that, let's take a closer look at the rocket and the satellite.
Hi, I'm Kate Tice, a Senior Program Reliability Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently tracking no issues as we count down to our 7:10 p.m. Eastern liftoff time. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the JCSAT-18 Kacific1 satellite around 2 a.m. local time and went vertical at 12:30 p.m. In fact, this is the fastest turnaround we've had to date, just 11 days and roughly 7 hours since our last launch from Space Launch Complex 40. At T-minus 1 hour, the chief engineer held a technical poll, and at T-minus 38 minutes, the launch director held a propellant load launch go, no-go poll. Everything was a go, so F9 began prop loading 3 minutes later at T-minus 35 minutes. For our propellants, we use oxidizer and fuel. The oxidizer is super chilled liquid oxygen, also called blocks, and the fuel is rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1. Second stage is fully loaded with its fuel, while first stage is on track to complete fuel load about 6 minutes before launch. Liquid oxygen is currently underway on both stages. Like I mentioned before, it's super chilled liquid oxygen. Lowering the LOX's temperature increases its density and gives Falcon 9 increased efficiency. We want to keep the LOX as cold as possible while Falcon 9 is still on the ground, so we don't complete liquid oxygen loading until the last couple minutes before liftoff. Falcon 9 uses helium to keep the fuel and liquid oxygen tanks pressurized throughout flight while propellant depletes. This also helps the RP1 and LOX flow correctly into the Merlin engines without any air bubbles. Helium load began before the webcast went live, and we'll continue to top it off until 90 seconds before launch. In about 45 seconds, engine chill procedures will begin. We'll be opening the pre-valves between the first stage propellant tanks and the 9 Merlin engines to allow a little bit of that cold liquid oxygen to flow into the turbopumps. This will bring the hardware down to a temperature close to that of the super chilled propellant that will be flowing through at liftoff. We're now at T-minus 7 minutes and 20 seconds. The vehicle is healthy and we're currently working no issues. The spacecraft team transferred the satellite to internal power at T-minus 23 minutes, so they're ready for launch and are just monitoring spacecraft telemetry. The range is go, air and sea space has been cleared, the weather is green, and all systems continue to be go for an on-time liftoff of 7:10 p.m. Eastern.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, today we're launching a single satellite with 2 payloads aboard, one for SkyPerfect JSAT and the other for Kacific. SkyPerfect JSAT is one of the largest providers of multi-channel pay TV broadcast services in Japan, operating the largest satellite communications business in Asia. The satellite we're launching today will provide KU band coverage and improve mobile and broadband services for customers in the Asia-Pacific region, including the far eastern part of Russia.
What the SkyPerfect JSAT group values the most as a satellite operator is to be connected anytime, anywhere. We operate and control geostationary satellites at 36,000 kilometers from the Yokohama Satellite Control Center and 2 other control centers nationwide. We use geostationary satellites to provide stable communications in the air and sea. In order to provide prompt rescue and support during and after disasters, it is necessary to secure quick communication. Satellite communication is a big asset. In addition, we have partnered with low Earth orbit satellite operators, and from JAXA, we acquired small demonstration satellites. We will enter into the sensing business that collects and uses space data. For image analysis, we provide intelligence to make informed decisions in partnership with Planet Labs Incorporated, Orbital Insight Incorporated, and others. We will continue to take on the challenge of delivering smiles. Space for your smile. SkyPerfect JSAT Group.
Now, while this is our 3rd launch for SkyPerfect JSAT, it's our 1st for Kacific. Kacific is a next-generation broadband satellite operator which provides high-speed, low-cost, reliable broadband to rural areas and suburban areas of the Pacific and Southeast Asia. Today's satellite will connect previously unserved or underserved populations in Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands with affordable, high-speed broadband.
When broadband touches the world changes.
Opening up new possibilities for business, communities and people.
Broadband is at the heart of everything we do.
We connect people with affordable, high-speed satellite broadband.
So they can fully participate in the digital world.
With 56 high-power beams, our Kacific1 satellite reaches 600 million people in 25 nations across Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands.
Based on the Boeing 702 MP platform and supported by advanced technologies,
Kacific1 delivers fast, efficient, and reliable broadband.
Because connectivity changes everything.
Education, healthcare, social services, and business.
It drives tourism, fuels economic development, and powers critical government services.
Our satellite broadband is a catalyst for change, improving people's lives, making a lasting difference to families and their communities.
We are the heart of broadband. We are Kacific.
A big thank you to the teams at SkyPerfect JSAT and Kacific for all of the hard work they've put into making today's launch possible. We're currently at T-minus 3 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. The first and second stages are now both fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage should finish prop loading. Actually, it just finished prop loading, and at T-minus 60 seconds, you'll hear the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The JCSAT-18 Kacific satellite continues to be healthy. We're tracking no issues on the rocket, weather is looking good, and the range is green. If for some reason we don't get to launch tonight, our backup window is tomorrow at the same time. But right now, Falcon 9 is go for launch. Let's listen in to the countdown nets.
Stage 2 LOX load is closed out. And vehicles on internal power. Falcon 9 is in startup.
Go for launch.
T-minus 15 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Liftoff of Falcon 9, carrying the JCSAT-18 Kacific1 satellite to geostationary transfer orbit. Stage 1 is now in full power. Everything looks nominal. We're now, oh, you heard the call out for throttling down.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
We're approaching max Q. This is when the rocket goes through the moment of greatest aerodynamic pressure.
Falcon 9 is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Now the next three events that we have coming up will be in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1. Main engine cutoff, or as you'll hear it called out, MECO, is where all 9 engines of Falcon 9 first stage shut down. You just heard the call out for MVAC engine chill. Again, that's when we're pre-chilling those turbopumps on the second stage. Now, the MECO will be followed by stage separation, or the separation of the first and second stages. Finally, second engine start, where we'll light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage and begin to carry the satellite to its targeted orbit. Let's listen in for those. MECO coming up in 20 seconds. So trajectory is looking good. Engine still at full power. On the left-hand side of your screen.
Miko.
Stage separation.
There we go. So there on your screen, as the second engine, excuse me, as the second stage engine begins to glow a bright orange, we have confirmation
First
there
and second
of
stage are on a
both
nominal
stages of the
trajectory.
stage separation and second engine start one. So on the left-hand side of your screen, that you'll see stage one as it begins its descent to the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. You can actually see the lights of Cape Canaveral there in the background. And then on the right-hand side of your screen, like I said, is the second stage. So we're coming up to fairing deployment. We jettison the fairing to shed any unnecessary weight from the second stage.
Fairing separation is confirmed.
So as you see there, fairing has separated. Again, we are attempting to catch those on our recovery vessels. But we now have confirmation that second stage is performing nominally, and we are looking good so far for today's mission.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
Now, at this point in the mission, the first stage is currently on a parabolic trajectory from the launch site going towards Of Course I Still Love You, which again is about 350 nautical miles off the Florida coast. To successfully land, the first stage will need to do a few things. First, it'll need to reorient so its engines and heat shield enter the Earth's atmosphere first. Then it'll reignite 3 of its Merlin engines for entry burn to reduce the aerodynamic forces and heating experienced as it transitions back into the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Once it's in the atmosphere, the grid fins will take over, guiding the rocket towards Of Course I Still Love You. When we're above the drone ship, a little after T+8 minutes into flight, the center Merlin engine will ignite for landing burn, followed by landing leg deploy, and hopefully a gentle touchdown on Of Course I Still Love You. Entry burn is scheduled to begin in about a minute from now, and it'll last about 20 seconds.
First and second stage continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
And we're seeing some slight plumes on the left. That's the shot from the first stage. We're obviously in the Earth's shadow right now. And on your right side is the second stage MVAC engine continuing its burn. Just about 20 seconds away from entry burn begin.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
And there's relight of those 3 Merlin vacuum engines. Now, fun fact, JCSAT-18 was actually the first time SpaceX successfully landed a geosynchronous transfer mission on a drone ship. Since then, we've made 43 successful landings between drone ships and on land.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
And we're hoping to make tonight's attempt our 47th successful first stage recovery. So if you're just joining us, the first stage just concluded its entry burn. It's on its way back to Of Course I Still Love You. The second stage is continuing its first engine burn towards a parking orbit. And that's taking the JCSAT-18 Kacific1 satellite up into orbit around the Earth to prepare for a second burn happening shortly after. Now, landing burn on the first stage and secondary engine cutoff number 1 will happen about the same time. Both of those are scheduled for about T+8 minutes.
Stage 1, entry transonic.
Second stage is entered terminal guidance.
At this point in the mission, the grid fins are guiding the first stage towards, of course, I Still Love You. We'll hopefully get a video feed back here for the first stage shortly.
Stage 1, landing burn, startup.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Go 1. Stage 1, landing leg, deploy.
Hearing cheers. Waiting for confirmation. Now, a bunch of things happened there. Secondary engine cutoff number 1 just happened. The spacecraft is in a good target orbit. And booster 1056 has just recovered it for the 3rd time. This is our 47th successful landing. Congratulations to the whole team here. Now with that, the second stage is currently in orbit and will continue coasting for about 20 minutes until the phasing is correct for secondary engine start number 2. We're gonna pause live coverage for now, but we'll be back at about T+27 minutes for MVAC engine relight. Until then, please enjoy this animation of the vehicle's progress, and we'll see you back here shortly.
expected loss of signal in Bermuda.
Welcome back to the webcast for JCSAT-18 Kacific1. Thanks for hanging out with us while we coasted through there. In case if you're just joining us, we had an on-time launch of Falcon 9 followed by a successful drone ship landing of Stage 1. Stage 2 was confirmed for a good orbit, so we're now approaching second engine start 2. Engine chill has begun on the Merlin vacuum engine, and in about 30 seconds we'll see the second relight of MVAC.
And
there on your screen, we can see MVAC as it has reignited. A little difficulty maintaining the video stream there. It's a little hard to get video from space, as you might imagine. But we'll bring that back to you as we can provide it. So we're waiting to hear the confirmation of good orbit. Sorry, I misspoke. We are waiting for a second engine cutoff followed by good orbit. Fun fact, stage 2 is approaching the coast of Africa right now. So it made quite some distance in the little bit of time that we were coasting.
Seco.
And second engine cutoff as we lose the cheesy orange glow of MVAC there. So we're waiting on that confirmation of
nominal
good
orbit insertion for payload deploy.
And we have confirmation of good orbit. So now that that's the case, we will be coasting for the next 5 minutes or so. So we'll be back just before T plus 33 minutes for satellite deployment. Stay tuned.
Acquisition signal HPK.
welcome back once again to our webcast for JCSAT-18 Kacific1. Second stage is currently over Africa, and in about 15 seconds, we'll have payload deployment. There on your screen, you see the deployment of JCSAT-18 Kacific1. I always love watching as the satellite floats away from second stage out into space. Again, this was geostationary transfer orbit. So with that confirmation of deployment, we will bring our webcast to a close. Thanks for tuning in for our liftoff from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, followed by a successful Stage 1 drone ship landing, and as you just saw, successful satellite deployment.
Thank you to our customer, SkyPerfect JSAT, and to Kacific for entrusting us with today's mission. We also want to give a big thanks to the Air Force's 45th Space Wing for providing range safety, and to the Federal Aviation Administration for licensing today's launch. Now, of course, we also want to thank all of you, our viewers, for tuning in to today's launch. Please follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. And until the next time, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.